In confusion and uncertainty, there emerges a guiding light, a beacon that cuts through the darkness. Welcome to Beacon of Truth with your host, Deacon Harold Burke-Sivers.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Beacon of Truth. I am your host, Deacon Harold Burke-Sivers, and you're listening on the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network. So great to be here with you today, and I'm excited because we're about to head out on our pilgrimage journey, first pilgrimage of the year with Father John Paul from EWTN, and we're going to do a Marian pilgrimage. We're going to Portugal, Spain, and France. And then we're doing a kind of an extension pilgrimage starting in Lourdes. So we're starting in Fatima. We're going to end up in Lourdes. And then we're going to do Saints of France from Lourdes and work our way up to Paris. So very excited about this. So please pray for us. And I promise to keep your intentions and prayers in our hearts as we travel. And if you want to go with us on the future pilgrimages, we have other opportunities. We're doing an incredible Divine Mercy pilgrimage to Poland, Hungary, and the Czech Republic in the end of August, beginning of September. And then we have the Holy Land in October, and also the Eucharistic Miracles of Italy as well, and also in October. Boy, so I would love for you to join us. Go to my website, deaconharold.com, click on the pilgrimage tab, and then sign up and join us on one of these incredible adventures of a really deep experience of God's mercy and love. And to be in the places where our Blessed Mother appeared and where the saints, some of the greatest saints in the history of the church, lived and worked. It's just going to be awesome. All right. So please pray for safe travels for all of us going. And if you have any intentions that you would like us to pray for, obviously because Father John Paul is going to be saying Mass every day for us, go ahead and go ahead and send me an email, beacon@ewtn.com, and we'll pray for your intentions as always. Well, today on the show, we have the one thing I like about the saints is that they're truly inspirational. You know, by the witness of their life and many things that they had to overcome, hardships. You think of Josephine Bakhita, right? Be a victim of human trafficking and slavery and abuse. You think of Maria Goretti, you know, the little girl who sacrificed her life rather than be assaulted. You think of so many saints that overcame tremendous adversities to accomplish great things for the Lord. You know, and our guest today is not a saint, but her life is truly inspirational. So excited to have Jessica Cox, who I'll talk about more and introduce you to her in the next part of the show. But amongst all her incredible achievements, she's a pilot and she's armless. So she has no arms, but yet she's a pilot. You're like, wait, what? Because that's what I first thought. Wait a minute. But when you delve into her story, it's just truly an inspiration. And I'm sure that all of us who not only have children or people that we love with certain disabilities, but to overcome adversities in life and to really rise up above them and to use what God has given us to glorify Him. You know, I think this is going to be the part of Jessica's story that's truly going to inspire all of us to keep striving to become the people who God created and calls each one of us to be. And of course, would love for you to be part of the program today. As always, send us an email, beacon@ewtn.com. You know, and I love doing this show each and every day, and I'm so edified, you know, as I've been traveling around, you know, a very, very busy Lenten speaking season. And then, of course, Easter, and the joy of this great feast of Christ's resurrection from the dead. And so now we're still in this season of joy. You know, what makes me joyful, all the people that bring you this show every day. I'm talking about Matt Gabinski, who screens the calls, and Michael McCall, who does our social media. And Sammy Davis Jr., some of you may remember him, part of the Brat Pack. He sung a song called "The Candyman Can." Mixes it with love and makes the whole world taste good. Well, I tell you, our producer Ace McKay is not the Candyman, but he still brings a lot of love and makes the whole world so much better by his presence. Ace McKay, how you doing?
I'm good. I've been called a lot of things, but compared to the Candyman, not so. But that would explain my sweet tooth.
Yeah, see? Well, there you go. All right.
It's always a sweet tooth.
How you been, my friend?
I've been good, man. I love, especially coming out of, Easter and Lent, there's like the good 6 weeks after Easter as we're in that, I remember growing up, obviously as a Southern Baptist, Easter was a day. So being in a place of faith now where I realize the season part of it and how much we can be jubilant, especially in a jubilant year, right? This only adds to, it's maximized. But part of my Lenten this year was me being in a mindset of, instead of me working into a better relationship with God, just having him work in a better relationship with me. So I tried to flip that coin so that I was more open, or tried to be more open to what did I need to receive. And it was such a much more peaceful place. I didn't have to come to okay, let me make a list of the things I need to give up. Let me make a list of the things that I need to pick up and try to mesh that in some kind of new behavior for the new and improved me. It's just letting God take hold and say, these are the things that I want to spend time with you in. These are the things I need you to let go of so that I can bring you these things. And it's a much different mindset. I don't know how that was for you, but I'm just kind of in that place of, okay, God, if this is now the new norm of our relationship or an extension of what was already there, I'm on board for it.
Yeah, I totally agree. And for me, it was more this Lent was good. I mean, I talk about fasting a lot, how we don't fast enough as Catholics. Although Jesus says, as we heard at the beginning of Lent, Jesus says when you fast, not if you fast, when you fast. So there was an expectation of fasting that our Lord had for us, and our only fasting day as Catholics is Ash Wednesday, our only day of fasting. So I decided to do fasting, every day, during Lent. Not only as a spiritual discipline, but the idea of emptying myself, because that longing that you have when you don't have food or you don't watch television, whatever it is you're giving up, the idea of the fast is you empty yourself of all those things that you feel attached to. When you empty yourselves of things, that makes more room in your heart and in your life for God. So you empty yourself so that God can fill you. And that's what I want. I want a deeper experience of being filled by God, especially with a very busy and very intense speaking schedule. Literally, I think I was home 6 days during Lent, during the entire Lenten season.
Yeah.
And so I want to be spiritually prepared for that, for all the challenges of travel and all the expectations that people had because, quote unquote, Deacon Harold was coming to their parish, whatever. But just be spiritually prepared for all the things that God wanted me to do. And I think it was a beautiful, faith-filled, joy-filled Lenten time, and also Easter. I think I was really more focused on Holy Week this week.
Yeah.
Because typically it's about, I'm back in the parish, I got to prepare homilies and all this kind of stuff. But I think I was more spiritually prepared this time than some Lenten seasons in the past. So I was grateful for that.
Yeah, well, in the same way, that when we fast from food or drinks or whatever, the next time you have anything in your mouth, it's so full of flavor, right? It enhances to make you realize not only what you're grateful that God provides, but it's like, yes, I was craving this, or this is exactly what I was looking for. And definitely spiritually, that's what the Lenten season is for, is it's to put us in a place spiritually that we starve from the things that we were force feeding, right? It's the junk food that we were putting in place of the healthy stuff. and so we have to remove the spiritual junk food to make room for all the feast and the famine we didn't realize we were in, right? We were eating all the wrong things, and we didn't understand why. Well, why am I just feeling this way all the time? Why do I feel like God's not working? And it's only because we were putting things in the way of his work.
Yeah, that's right. It's interesting because right before Lent, in vigils in the office of readings, it was Ecclesiastes was the Old Testament reading, and how Solomon talks about it's all a chase of the wind, all these things we immerse ourselves in that ultimately have to be passed on to others. So I love that. All right, we're going to talk with Jessica Cox today on Beacon of Truth. We'd love to hear from you. Send us an email, beacon@EWTN.com. Whoa.
Little East Coast,
Woo!
babe.
Yeah, little kind of a New Jack Swing kind of feel there a little bit.
Yeah.
I love that the syncopated kick on the kick drum.
So iconic of that time, too.
Oh, yeah.
It was on everything.
Oh, yeah. What were the dances back then? We were doing the WAP and the Running Man. And,
please tell me there was a time that you at least were on some cardboard somewhere.
Oh,
spinning.
No.
No?
You know, I never got into breakdancing,
All right.
Yeah, no, I did those other dances though, but not breakdancing. I mean, moving like a gymnast like that, nah, that wasn't for me. Now, there were other kids. Like my younger brother was into that stuff, but I just can't get my body to contort like that.
I can actually out myself. The only breakdance move I was ever any good at was the worm. And anytime like at high school, middle school dances, and the floor would clear, and everybody would get into their breakdance moves, I would just let everybody do their thing, and they're like, "Okay, you go," and I would just worm across. They're like, "No, boy," and then I would just walk off like, "Good night, ladies and gentlemen." That's all. It was the best.
That's awesome. Yeah, you tried that now. There's gonna be some back pain, I think.
My body would hate me.
Awesome. We listen to Deacon Harold Burke Sivers, and this is Beacon of Truth. And today we have a great guest, Jessica Cox, with us, who is armless, but has not used that as an excuse to be just truly great in her life and the things she's able to accomplish, and in her faith. Would love to hear from you today, my friends. Send us an email, beacon@EWTN.com.
Want to remind you, if you're on social media today and you are on the X platform, sometimes it's nice to know that not everything on there has to be full of rage. You can always follow EWTN Radio to get some encouragement and get some clips that help to just bring you closer in your walk with God. So check us out. Just search EWTN Radio on X.
All right, my friends, it is now time for the Soulful Psalms on this segment of Beacon of Truth. This is where we take one of the Psalms from the wisdom literature of the Old Testament. It's the same Psalms that we hear in each and every holy sacrifice of the Mass, and we connect the Psalms to your everyday lived experience. And what's exciting is that this segment of Beacon of Truth, the Soulful Psalms, are now its own podcast. You can go to Podcast Central on EWTN's website, EWTN.com, or, as I do, download and listen on the EWTN app, which is phenomenal, or one of your favorite podcast platforms like iTunes or Spotify or SoundCloud to download and listen to the Soulful Psalms each and every day. Today, we're going to continue our look at Psalm 90. So Psalm 90 starts book 4 of the Psalms, and this is the only psalm that's attributed to Moses. So, Moses, in Jewish understanding, he wrote the Pentateuch. So the first 5 books of the Bible, or the law of Moses as it's called, the Torah, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. And so the prescript or superscript of this Psalms, as we looked at before, it says, Prayer of Moses, the man of God. All right. Very simple prescript there, verse 1. But we're going to jump in today at Psalm 90. We're going to take a look at verses 9 and 10 of Psalm 90. So, verse 9 says, all our days pass away in your anger. Our years are consumed like a sigh, right? So, all our days pass away in your anger. So, what does he mean by that? Our days pass away in your anger. So I think what Moses is doing here is reflecting on the shortness of our life, you know. And so we need to spend time not doing those things that are going to turn our hearts away from God. Building up those things in our life and achieving things and material things and wealth and all these kinds of things that we can't take with us. So we should be spending our times doing things that are going to glorify God. Now, I'm not saying, for example, the accumulation of wealth is a bad thing. If God has put, is that a grace that God has given you? That those are graces that are meant to be shared, not to be hoarded, right? Not to bring attention to yourself, but use those resources, yes, to create a good life for yourself. God bless you, but also to be a blessing in the lives of others as well. Right. So I think Moses is reflecting here, let's focus on what the years that we have on this earth, which are short compared to time and eternity in God's presence. Let us focus on those things that are not going to anger God. Right. Again, typical of the psalmist, including Moses here, using human feelings, human emotions, human attribution on God. Of course, God, the Father, has no feelings or emotions. God is just pure and perfect love. But again, Moses here is saying, let's focus on the things that in this shortness of our life that are going to bring glory and joy to God's heart, if you will. Our years are consumed like a sigh, right? You think, ah, that's our life, right? In the eyes of God. And I love this next verse. 70 years is the span of our days, or 80 if we are strong. And most of these are toil and pain. They pass swiftly and we are gone. Wow. I mean, every time I pray this psalm, I just have to pause after verse 10 and just reflect. I don't know how long I'm going to live. I'm in my late 50s right now. I don't know how long God is going to give me on this earth, but I know I'm closer to the end than I am to the beginning. And so, with whatever time I have left, how is God going to, how am I going to use whatever time I have left to glorify God? Moses here, again, in these two verses, are emphasizing how short 70 years or 80 if we're strong. And most of these are toil and pain, right? Because most of life is the cross. So our life is about embracing the cross we have received. And yes, and we fall sometimes. That's what the sacrament of reconciliation is for. We pick up that cross and continue to move forward until we get to the end of that journey, which is not crucifixion. It's heaven. It's resurrection and life with God forever in heaven. So these things that happen in our life, we can't let them be a hindrance to us, but we pick up that cross and keep moving forward. All right. Well, now I want to bring in our guest for today, who's truly, truly an inspiration. Jessica Cox. I guess if you want to have a word to that kind of describe her, it's adaptability. Since she was an infant, she was born without arms, and so her mother, used to hand her toys when she was in the crib, but to her, hand it to her feet. And she refused to see herself as a victim. She refused to see herself as being different. And she defied all expectations and went on in her life to become a fourth degree black belt in Taekwondo. And she is the world's first licensed armless pilot in history. That's absolutely incredible. She's had dreams of flying ever since she was young and was able to accomplish that and really accomplish tremendous things. She's also the author of a really compelling memoir called Disarm Your Limits, the flight formula to lift you to success and propel you to the next horizon. My brothers and sisters in Christ, I'd like to introduce to you to Beacon of Truth, Jessica Cox. Jessica, welcome to Beacon of Truth.
Thank you for having me on. I'm glad to be here.
I'm so glad that you're here today. And I got to tell you, you have such a beautiful and inspirational story. So, first of all, a lot of people here may not be aware of you. So, tell us a little bit about your. Well, first of all, obviously, you were born, right, with. Is there a condition that's called when you're born without limbs like that or without arms or?
Probably the best way to sum it up is congenital birth defect.
Okay.
Essentially, this is something that it was not in the genes or just something environmental my mother may have been exposed to while pregnant. And out I came to the shock of the entire world because the sonogram said that I was going to be a normal baby girl. But it shocked the entire operating room staff and my parents the day of my birth. And it was definitely not an easy thing at the beginning.
No, I'm sure. And so were you raised in the faith at all, or how'd your parents respond to this when they saw your situation?
That was the foundation that was my rock. My mother was a devout Catholic and was her entire life, and my father later a convert, not when I was born, but he wasn't Catholic when I was born, but they really relied heavily on faith because it really shook their world as to what kind of future was in store for me and would I have to live a life of dependence? How would I deal with my difference and all these questions that overwhelmed them at the time of my birth. But my father, said one day he ran into someone in the baby, the newborn room where they have all the newborn babies, and he was rocking me in his arms, and a woman behind him approached him and said, "You must be special parents for God to bless you with a child like Jessica." And it restored the faith that they always had, but in the dark moments of my birth, it was very difficult at first, and then they were reminded of their faith. And that was the foundation of my childhood, was having that profound faith that God will help us through our challenges, and He has a purpose.
So, Jessica, as you got older and you began to see, hey, wait a minute. I'm, I mean, you didn't, I'm sure because all you've known is life without arms, but when you see other people, other kids with arms and then, but you don't, I mean, was it something that you maybe blamed God or got angry with God, or how did you, or did you feel any of that, or how did you maybe overcome that to really have the faith that you have now?
Oh, I was angry all the time. And anger is still a little bit in me because that's part of the human experience. But for me, it was really about understanding that I can really lift this up to the Lord. And as a young person, I even went up to the parish priest when I was 5 and asked him to pray for me to have arms, pray that God would give me arms. That's how I was not okay with this as a young person. And in the earlier years, it was very difficult to be different, to understand why me? Why am I the only one? I have an older brother, Jason, a younger sister, Jackie, my friends at school, my teachers, everyone in my life has arms, but I don't. And that made it very difficult in a sense of isolation from being different.
Yeah.
So, in turn, it also helped me ask these questions as a young person and draw on my faith and go to my mom and ask her, Mom, why would God make me like this? And my father would say things like, He allowed this to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Well, I can't wait to dive into your story even more. Well, my friends, we're talking with Jessica Cox, the world's first armless pilot and author and speaker. Would love to hear from you today, my friends. Send us an email, beacon@EWTN.com. Oh, yeah.
That'll get you going in the crowd right there.
Yeah. And what's cool about that riff, it sounds like John Dunn, like it's kind of playing fast, but really it's just kind of like every other. It's like a hammer-on kind of a thing. It's really not that hard to play.
Yeah.
It sounds like it could be, but it's not. And for me, as soon as I hear that kind of riff, and then the guitar just now that tone, very much like a Joe Satriani. That's the first part that comes to my mind when I hear that. You know, from like that Surfer with an Alien time.
Yeah, for sure.
Love that. Love that. That's good stuff.
Yeah, never underestimate the rhythmic guitarist in the band.
Oh yeah, definitely. Well, look at Metallica. You know, James Hetfield is, I think, one of the best when it comes to playing rhythm. Or so you talk about rhythm, right? So you have guys like James Hetfield and Metallica. Then you have like Nile Rodgers and Chic, right? I mean, which also plays like just rhythm guitar and stuff.
Yeah,
so, two very different genres there, but it's all good, as the kids say, right?
That's right.
I'm Deacon Harold Burke Sivers, and you're listening to Beacon of Truth. And today we have an awesome and inspirational guest, Jessica Cox, who is Catholic and the first armless pilot. She has no arms, and she's the first armless pilot ever in history. And so we're going to learn all about her journey. So we heard a little bit about her in the last segment. We're going to be diving into her story even more in great detail now. So I'm very excited, and would love for you, of course, to be part of the program today. Send us an email, my friends, beacon@EWTN.com.
Don't forget, more conversations are being had at Podcast Central. Catholic Conversation is something you want to check out, because Steve and Becky Green give not only a faith-filled perspective, not only from their family, but also you have one who was full-on cradle Catholic and one that converted, and how that has brought them closer together as a couple. You can check it out on Podcast Central when you go to EWTN.com/podcast.
All right. Wonderful. Okay, so Jessica, in the last segment here, you told us about the congenital birth defect that you were born with, to the surprise of your parents, and how their faith really helped sustain them, and how, even though and obviously you had a lot of anger when you saw all the kids and everyone else around you, your brothers and your sister had arms and you didn't. You went to even at 5 years old, you went to a priest and asked him to pray that God would give you arms and things like that. So as you're getting older, you're getting used to life with no arms. I mean, how did you manage, like, learning to like write or things like that, or adapt? And how did you come to use your feet kind of as a vehicle, to instead of arms? Like, how did all that come about?
Well, naturally, my feet were always there to begin with, since I didn't have the arms and hands,
Yeah.
and naturally, the brain just picked the feet because the toes have the same function as fingers, and the feet have similar bones as hands, and it just became a natural choice to use my feet like hands, and it was nothing really intentional other than the doctor, told my mom that was probably going to start to happen. I was going to start to adapt to using my feet. And sure enough, she supported that by, as you mentioned before, she handed me toys and I'd reached with my toes to receive the toys. And then when it came to eating, I picked up a Cheerio off the table and put it in my mouth with my toes. And babies and toddlers, you see how flexible they are, and that
Oh yeah.
flexibility it just stayed with me. And because constant use, compound effort, just continuing to go through these milestones as any child would, learning to write in school. I went to a public school. I grabbed a pencil between my big toe and second toe, and I just watch along. In fact, in my brain, I interpreted this as, oh, okay, these are my hands, and I know their feet, but they are in fact my toes, my hands, and my fingers. And I made that connection immediately so I could watch people use their hands and fingers, and it would translate to me as using my toes and my feet.
Wow. That is awesome. That is awesome. And so as you're going to church, and you're doing all this using your feet. Now, so at what point did you say, you know what, um, where the anger began to give way to like determination, and adaptability? Like, for example, you're a fourth degree black belt in Taekwondo. Like, was there a point where there was a shift and you said, okay, now I'm going to get out of this mindset and really move into, to see what God has in store for me for my life?
There was definitely a powerful prayer that my mom gave me, and I had it on the dresser, and every morning I'd wake up and read this. And this was the serenity prayer, which many people know. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And how true that became real in my life is that I started to make this shift. And it wasn't just one moment, it wasn't overnight. It was a series of moments over time that I leaned on faith and trusting that the Lord had a plan and that He would give me the strength to do some of the very things that, maybe people said you can't do it. There's no way that someone without arms can practice Taekwondo, or there's no way that someone without arms can drive a car or do these things, that there's a lot of doubt in people's eyes. But I knew, because I had that foundation of faith, that with God all things are possible. And there's no telling what someone can achieve. They need to first try, and that grit became part of my life. I just did a lecture on grit at a university, and I talked about how our very hardships and our very adversity actually become a gift because they provide us that a resilience and that grit that we need to move forward in greater challenges ahead. So it's a growth mindset of this is going to only make me stronger and better and stretch me in a way that is better for me.
So what was your experience like in high school with all of this? Because high school is
Oh.
already challenging enough with the hormone changes and all that kind of stuff. I mean, did you date and things like that? Or what was your experience like there in high school?
Oh, high school was rough. I mean,
Yeah.
high school's rough enough as it is, but to add a very big difference to further isolate you or give people more reason to pick on you or single you out, surprisingly, I had such a wonderful group of friends that they stood up for me. I grew up in a small town and then had a lot of support behind me, but I can probably count on my toes 5 occasions when I was actually picked on or made fun of. It was that few, like anyone, they've experienced that. And it was really about really developing a really strong backbone and responding to that and understanding that that was coming from a place of weakness and that it wasn't about me. This was about the other person. And finally making that mature connection helped me out significantly to get through some of those moments of being, singled out or given a hard time. But it developed a thick skin. It helped me again to lean on my faith and rise above it.
Wow. Wow, that's so awesome. And so how did you get interested in flying? I mean, and to become a pilot, like what was your love for flying? Where did that come about?
Well, flying was my greatest fear. I did not like the idea of losing contact with the ground. But I decided to become a motivational speaker. And with that, I had to practice what I preach. And I talked about never letting fear stand in the way of any opportunity. And my faith was a huge part of that. And I relied heavily on God for the courage to get through many of the challenges that I faced as someone born without arms, doing some of these things. But when it came to flying, it was especially necessary because I was terrified of losing contact with the ground. It didn't have anything to do with my fear of heights. I didn't have a fear of heights. I didn't, uh, it wasn't that. It was just losing contact with the ground. And I relied heavily on my faith, and it gave me that strength to pray a rosary every time I took off during my flight lessons to overcome that, knowing that I have the strength of the Lord behind me. And it gave me this exactly what I needed to be able to overcome every single day of flight training, facing my fear head on and doing something despite that terrorizing feeling of losing contact with the ground.
I'm Deacon Harold Burke Sivers, and you're listening to Beacon of Truth. And we're talking with Jessica Cox today, who is the world's first licensed armless pilot, and also has a fourth degree black belt in Taekwondo, and an author and a motivational speaker. Man, we're just having a great conversation today um, about overcoming adversity and the challenges that sometimes that are in our life. But we use those in order to glorify God. I would love to hear from you today, my friends. Send us an email, beacon at EWTN.com. From a practical standpoint, because I'm on planes all the time, I fly hundreds of thousands of miles every year. And so you look into the cockpit and there's all these buttons and gears. I mean, do you do all that with your feet or are there like voice commands? Like how does that work like practically?
Yeah, that's the big question because that was a
Yeah.
question when we first started this training process because no one had ever done this before. No one had flown a plane. And just to clarify, this is not a specially built airplane. This was not built
Okay.
for me. It wasn't modified in any way. This is a standard 1946 Aircoupe airplane. And for me, it was just about really using my feet. As I mentioned, I grew up using my toes. And so I just translated that to putting my toes on the controls, on the yoke, holding back on the yoke. It did take a lot of ab work, so that was something that I had to develop just over time, constantly. I probably had more hours than the average student pilot because I needed that reassurance that the muscle strength was there for the most critical part, which is landing, and that's where the abs come in because I'm essentially having both feet up on the controls and I don't have much leverage, but it's all about the abs and pulling back on the yoke to be able to land safely. All these things had to be worked through with creativity and just trying to figure out, with God, all things are possible. And if there's a will, there's a way. We can figure out a way around it. A few things we had to figure out a way around. But after some amazing instruction from my instructors, of course, support and persistence, we figured these out to the point that the FAA certified me as a sport pilot and recognized that I was safe to be a pilot.
That is so awesome. And so you went for the black belt being a pilot. And then let me ask you this because I know you're a motivational speaker, very inspirational. Who were some of the people that inspired you? I mean, for example, there's what's Nick Vujicic?
Boychit,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. So Nick,
Boychit, uh-huh.
obviously very popular speaker, also has no arms or legs, you
Uh-huh.
know, but he's married, and things. And then from the Catholic world, Tony Melendez,
Yes.
who also has no arms, but is a professional musician, has played for the Pope,
Uh-huh.
and things like that. I mean, have you been in contact with? Do you know them? Have you been inspired by them at all? Or
Yeah, actually, I heard about Tony Melendez when I was 5. And growing up in a small town in southern Arizona, my parents, drove all the way to Tucson at the time, and it was a 2-hour drive. We made it to Tucson, and there was Tony Melendez playing his guitar. When I was 5, that made a huge impact on me. I remember sitting on the steps near the altar to get close to him and watching him play with his feet and to be there in front of everyone and with such courage and profound faith, it made a huge mark on me. I mean, I later connected, we connected, so I was able to talk to him not in front of a whole crowd and meet with him one-on-one. And he then, as a teenager, showed back up in my life at another parish after my family moved around. And then when I was a teenager, the question of driving came up, and he said, hop in my car. And I went out and he showed me his car and he showed me his little special modifications on his car. And that just again gave me that inspiration that anything is possible. So having that Catholic mentor growing up had an effect on me.
oh, that's fantastic. And what about Nick? Do you know him at all?
I do. I actually called him one day not too long ago, and I met him at a speech. I remember when I first started off speaking, and saw him at a church. He was speaking, sharing his testimony. He's an evangelist, and as we all, he's pretty famous. And getting to just meet with him there, and then later talk to him over the phone. And I've seen him at another event just last year in Denver. It was really a special connection because he has such a profound faith as well, and he's
Yeah.
a father to 4 kids, has a beautiful wife, and he lives his life. And it's again, has a huge impact.
So what made you want to become a motivational speaker? And you're also an author as well. So what was that transition like in your life? And then how, if any, did your faith play a part in that decision?
There's no doubt faith has played a part of everything in my life, from the very beginning till every single day now. And it was just a part of me that really wanted to share with the world this message. As a young person, I was actually shy and quiet, and my senior class labeled me as the most shy in the senior class in high school. So I was actually pretty quiet, but then I had this voice that was roaring inside. And the moment I graduated college, I just didn't look back and I decided to become a speaker. And after I got my degree in ecology and the minor communication, I decided, let me just pair these two together and see what I can do, put myself out there. Now I've traveled to 28 countries around the world in person. I've done speeches, one virtually for 40,000 people and crowds 8,000, 10,000, and it's just a wonderful blessing to be uh, an advocate of my Catholic faith and the belief that anything is possible. If I fly a plane, what is it that's holding back anyone from achieving the things in their life? And in the very adversity we face, actually are what strengthen us to get through the difficulties that we face in the future. So it's amazing how that has been a wonderful gift, and I'm just open to where God brings me and where He wants me to share my message. I'm speaking for the Franciscan Friars next month, and I just spoke for NCYC 2 years ago, and just last week I spoke for RE Congress, which was 7,200 young people in the religious education program getting ready for their confirmation. It was a beautiful experience to be able to share my faith in hopes of inspiring them to strengthen and grow in theirs as well.
Oh, well, there's no question or doubt that you're an inspiration for thousands, maybe tens of thousands of people all around the world. Do you still and what I love about your spirit and I love about what you're doing, Jessica, is that, you're living in a way where you know you don't want people to feel sorry for you. So many people have things to overcome in their life, and they take on kind of a victim mentality. Oh, woe is me! Look at me, that kind of thing. But no, you've taken that and you've channeled that and funneled that through the lens of your faith into something beautiful for God. And so, do you have other folks with congenital defects, kids, others that communicate with you and share with you how you've inspired them?
Yes, I have a nonprofit that I started now 7 years ago, and it's to reach out to the children around the world, not just in the United States, but around the world who were born without arms. Because sometimes parents are clueless as to how do I teach my child to be independent, or how do I encourage my child when they're a teenager and they're going through this difficulty. For me, it's just about really connecting with them so that they understand, just like my mentors in my life showed me, is that you're not alone. And not that you're not only not alone, but you also can get through this. And there's someone here who understands you, who knows what it's like and has gone through that and survived.
I'm Deacon Harold Burke Sivers. You're listening to Beacon of Truth, and we're talking with Jessica Cox, who's a Catholic professional, motivational, inspirational speaker, author, pilot, who's overcome tremendous adversity, having no arms, born with a congenital defect, but has not let that stop her or prevent her from doing great things all around the world for God. And I really hope, like I am, that you're inspired by this incredible story of faith and overcoming adversity, and that you will use those things that you see as come out of a negative in your life to turn it around and use it as a way to launch your faith even deeper for God. Send us an email, be part of the show today, beacon at EWTN.com. So, Jessica, what is your life like now? I mean, are you still living at home? Are you on your own? And what is life like for you today?
It's a blessing. Like I say, I open myself up to whatever the Lord has planned, and I've been happily married for 12 years, going on
Oh,
13, and it's been such a beautiful blessing to be married to a wonderful man who is so incredibly supportive. He's a convert, by the way. We were married originally. He was not Catholic, and then after just recently became Catholic, and it was beautiful to watch him through that journey and be there for him, and we together make this team of love that shares this message around the world. He's essentially as my manager, he helps manage all my bookings. And by the way, if anyone wants to look into this, they can go to catholicspeakers.com to find out more about how to book me for events. And he has been such a wonderful, supportive man for me. We met in Taekwondo, by the way. He was a third degree black belt in Taekwondo when I was a first degree, and he's now a fifth degree black belt, and I'm now a fourth
Wow.
degree black belt.
Oh, that's wonderful. Oh, that's great. So he helps you, travels with you, manages everything for you, which is fantastic. And so when did your book come out? And I love the title, the way disarm your limits, the flight formula to lift you to success and propel you to that. That's very creative title for a book. I absolutely love that. When did that book come out, and how can people pick that up?
Well, that title was took a lot, I'll tell you that, because I was really trying to figure out what's going to get people's attention, and the disarm your limits really does, because no matter who we are, we can feel like we're limited. And this connection, because this isn't just an autobiography, but it's also a self-help book. So it talks about all these different principles that people can impart on have their in their life as well, like perseverance and courage. And I don't want to forget to mention, but I was a part of a documentary called Right Footed, which is on Amazon
Oh,
Prime for free. And it won Best Documentary at the Vatican Film Festival in Rome. So that was a big shock.
wow.
When that aired, that ended up going all the way to Rome and winning Best Documentary. And it was such a blessing to go there to receive that for this wonderful documentary that ended up not necessarily being a focus of my faith, but became such a testament of my faith. As you know, if you lift it up and you never know where it'll take you. And it's this wonderful journey of me, first of all, getting married to my husband and then traveling and sharing my message to places around the world, Ethiopia, the Philippines, and various places as a speaker, and also mentoring children without arms. So it's a beautiful journey. I invite anyone to watch it. It's free on Amazon Prime.
Oh, that I'm definitely gonna be doing that. That's that's for sure. That is so awesome. And I love the fact that that you really propelled you to God with His grace has used you as a vehicle, right? And I say this all the time, Jessica, that I'm just the instrument, God's the musician, and
Love it.
I'm so grateful to you and for the witness of your life for being that finely tuned instrument in God's hands, right? And you just allowed him his grace and his love to flow through you, and to inspire so many people around the world. And I'm sure that through your foundation, that many uh, kids that have congenital defects are able to look at you and say, "See what she was able to accomplish. Look, what, no, I wonder what I could do with my life." And I just absolutely love that, that you're such a wonderful vehicle of God's grace and God's incredible love in your life, and to have a wonderful husband and just so what's next for you? Like what kind of things are you looking forward to in the future in the next few years here?
Well, I love that this Jubilee year is all about hope.
Yes.
And wow, what a beautiful way to be able to do even more to share the message. So I'm continuing to look for opportunities to do that, looking for partners to help us accomplish that, to get the message out, to renew many of us Catholics who need more hope or joy, and reminder of our wonderful Catholic faith. So that'll be continued work that I will leave up to the Lord, and doing more as far as building a plane. Now I'm part of a process and an
Ah.
amazing volunteer team who is building a plane. And that's, I know it sounds surreal, but you can build planes out of kits. So it's very possible if you have a wonderful expertise of amazing team to help do that.
So Jessica, so how can people get in touch with you? Like, if they Google, do you have a website that people can go to, like, to get your book, or like, get kind of all the resources from one spot, or should they go to Amazon and then the Catholic Speakers Association to book you, or can they just go to your website and get all that information as well?
CatholicSpeakers.com and Amazon for the book and the
And
documentary.
oh, Excellent, excellent. Well, I tell you, Jessica, I have so much enjoyed speaking with you today. You are such an incredible inspiration to me, and to so many others all around the world. I just want to thank you for taking the time to be with us today. And everybody, don't forget, Catholic Speakers Association, type in Jessica Cox and have her come and speak at your parish or your event. All right, my friends. Well, keep praying for us as we're on pilgrimage, and I promise to keep all of you in our prayers as well. And remember, you can stream today's show by visiting Podcast Central at EWTN.com/radio. And until we're together again, my friends, may Almighty God bless you, keep you, and protect you. The Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.